Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Environment Sustainability Committee meeting, Monday, May 27th. Welcome Councillor Duran, Councillor Bernard. I'm chairing for Councillor Bernard, who's away but online, and welcome to Councillor Beck for joining us. Call to order. Any declarations of conflict of interest?
None.
See none?
None.
No. Approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Your Worship.
Councillor Beck has made a request that we change 6B to A. Community garden proposal, Katrina, see attachment. So B would become A would become B.
So
Good.
6B is 6A.
Yep.
Okay,
Moved.
moved. Need a seconder?
Sure.
Okay.
Councillor Bernard, thank you very much. We'll approve the agenda. Approval of minutes of May 8th, 2024.
Moved.
Moved. Any business arising from the minutes?
None.
Perfect. On to 6 now A, community garden proposal from Katrina.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, you go ahead. Yeah. I'm just gonna.
Okay. So this report is a little different than some of the ones we sometimes do. It's coming from a request from the community. So a while ago, we were contacted by a group of residents living in the Brighton area about a property there. It's consisting of a number of different properties, which you can see on the site map attached. Basically, it's essentially abandoned. There's not much there, and it's lending itself to some issues. In terms of garbage dumping, needles, people hanging out there, that kind of thing. So these residents are looking for something good to happen with that property. 2 of the properties in question are already owned by the city, one of which is being used as a parking lot for the Northside Alcoholics Anonymous group. The other one is just kind of sitting there being maintained by Public Works. But it's sort of the third property that we're mostly here to talk about today. It's privately owned. It fronts onto Victoria Street. It has city easements running through it that make it so that it can't be developed. So there's really not much that can be done with that property, and that's part of why it's just sort of sitting there, maybe causing some problems. So the group that contacted us is very interested in starting a community garden on this sort of collective set of properties. However, to be able to do so, they have requested that the city purchase the land that we don't already own. It is currently for sale. The community group, we've met with a number of times. They're very eager and dedicated to seeing this happen. They, as you'll see also attached, they have a number of support letters from the community, I think 7 different ones, that highlight a number of different benefits to doing this, like neighborhood beautification, revitalization, community building, increasing food growing opportunities, and an increased feeling of neighborhood safety, all of which aligns with goals that the city already has under our existing plans, such as our integrated community sustainability plan. And then I'll also just note that they did take around a petition to others in the neighborhood, and I think it was over 140 signatures or something like that. It's quite a large number. So anyways, essentially what we're here to talk about today is whether the purchase of that land would be a possibility and whether the committee would support that purchase and the potential starting of a community garden on that land should it be purchased. I will note that the funds to potentially purchase that land are not currently budgeted in the environment and sustainability budget or another budget. So should the committee and council be in support of it, money would need to be essentially added to somebody's budget to make that happen.
Thank you, Katrina. I just have a question on your map. I guess when I'm looking at the map, I'm seeing 2 easements. Is one an error? Like one easement going through one person's property there just doesn't line up?
Are you looking at there's the one that kind of runs all the way through and then there's the one to the left-hand side?
The one to the left.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It's on a different piece of land. There is some kind of easement there, but I'm not exactly sure why.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions from councilors, Your Worship?
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
Okay, is that Councillor Bernard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, first of all, I just want to say that Councillor Beck brought this up property a couple of months ago. Good on him. It looks like a piece of land that, as Katrina was saying, can't be built on, and it's a great idea. Actually, I'm seeing quite a few of those. This idea that's been proposed out here in Squamish. Very organized, a lot of different separated garden plots, flower plots, whatever you want to call them. I think it's a great idea. My only question is, since it can't be built on, and the piece of land that we're looking to purchase, what is the purchase price? Has there been any negotiation done on the purchase price of that land? And what is it?
Yeah, so currently it's for sale for $129,000. However, based on conversations we've had with numerous other city staff, the feeling is that's not a reasonable price for it, and we would have to undertake negotiations. However, we didn't want to do that without having the support of council. So we haven't had any conversations of that nature to date.
Okay, so I would be in support of it. I think it's, like I said earlier, I think it's a great idea, and I'm seeing a lot more of it, especially out here. But obviously, it would come down to what the price is too. We'd like to see what the price is. You're right. For us, I'm not sure it's worth $130,000, especially if the land can't really be developed. So I would be supportive, depending on what the city's going to pay for the land. So I guess, Katrina, what you're saying is the next step would be to have someone evaluate it. Would that be correct? Evaluate the property?
Yeah,
Getting a
so
sense
the next
of that.
step would be essentially to look at the value of the land and to negotiate with the landowner to see what price we could get. And then the intention would be to come back to committee and council for final approval should we land on what seems like a reasonable price. But we would just need to know that there was support for it and essentially that there would be allocation of budget to it should that process be undertaken and a fair price be achieved.
Okay, so really, yeah. So we're asking for support to move on, which I would definitely support. Yes, I would move that.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Duran, you had a question?
Yeah, I think it was answered there. I was trying to figure out which lot it was, but it's the blue one that has the easement going through. It fronts Victoria Street, I guess. So I just wanted clarification on that one.
Yeah, that's correct.
And why couldn't it be built on? Just because of the easement?
Yeah, so there's city stormwater and sewer infrastructure running underneath that makes it undevelopable.
Okay, thank you.
Great initiative in a
Mr. Chair.
residential area, your worship?
Yeah,
Question?
if you go to page 26, the digital, you'll see that is a stormwater sewer that was installed back in 1994, 1995. It's about a 60-inch pipe. But Katrina, did you say there's, parallel to that, there's a wastewater line also?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's like when we separated out the two.
Oh,
like
when we separated the
when we did
sanitary
the
from the
sewer.
storm?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think there's one of each now.
Okay. So just next to lot 354373 to the east, that lot is part of 57 Spring Park Road. Do you see the parking lot? And extends right down to a large piece of property. I think that's owned by the Suela Tweedle. So, if we want to work something with Suela or Tweedle's about, working something that could expand this garden, because I'll tell you right now, as Councillor Bernard remembers, Des Brisay Park was a park that, a community garden that started back in 2001, 2002. It was a vacant piece of property that was left, again, part of this project when the city installed the new stormwater and wastewater line. And now they've outgrown, they need more space. They're running, they got a line, they got a number of applications in that are in the queue. So this will add to relieving some of that issue. And when they did develop the Des Brisay Community Garden back in 2001, 2002, we made application to the Robert Cotton Fund. Don't know if that's still in place, but also there's the Bronfman Foundation that is a Canadian corporation that provides funding for projects like this. So I think there's a lot of pluses. And if you got the community that's supporting it, I think it's a green light. Thank you.
Councillor Beck?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor McKinnon. I'm just here, and thank you for allowing me as a Ward 3 representative to attend the meeting. I had some really, I would say, gratifying meetings with the community people that are involved in this. There's a high level of engagement. There's a high level of understanding. There's a high level of cooperation. There's a high level of commitment. They're very much kind of speaking to His Worship's point there a minute ago. They've got people who are very willing and able and capable of finding out funding sources to help support the garden. As you can see by the petition, there's a widespread approval and acceptance of this. If you look at the addresses, it goes quite a few blocks north, quite a few blocks west, quite a few blocks south. And I'm sure if we continued it on, that number would probably go from 140 up to 640 very easily. But I think it speaks to the level of openness that there is for this kind of concept. And in today's world of being green, of food insecurity, of community building, community placemaking, all those sorts of benefits, I just see taking a land that has been, for all intents and purposes, an eyesore, beautifying it and making a real community centerpiece right in the heart of Charlottetown, and easily accessible. And again, to tag on to His Worship's point, we've got lineups for people to come in and who are interested in this. And I think the other part that I like about it, and I know this has happened to Desborough Crescent, it's really brought New Islanders together, and it's been a unifying element in that regard. So I certainly support continuing the negotiations and letting Katrina and the crew, Katrina's crew, do their thing. But I think it could end up being a real value added to the city. And so I fully support it, and I hope that we can make this community garden a reality in downtown Charlottetown. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. No, I think full support from everybody here for Katrina to move forward. One more question. When it's those three properties, do you have an approximate area size combined?
I don't know, but I could find out
just
through our
kinda
Connect Explore
curious.
software, yeah.
I think I have a bit of an idea in that, Councillor McKinnon. I think that property itself is about 0.2 something acres. Is a figure that sticks out in my mind. And when you add on the chunk that we own behind the North End AEA Group, and when you add on the parcel that we own with currently parking that serves the North End AEA Group, that gets quite a bit bigger. Potentially, if we're able to tag on something on the, what's that, east side of that land, and work something in there. Because I think currently our Public Works is currently going in, I think, I think they're doing some periodical maintenance down around there just to keep the Japanese knockwood and all the invasive species that are going down there at bay. So, and that would be another element of this it would give us an opportunity to really get at some of this stuff, I would think too, and hopefully remediate some of those nefarious plants that are growing in there, and maybe work towards either reducing or eliminating and beautifying all at the same time. So I think I think it's about 0.2 acres, that original plot.
All right. Jessica?
Thank you, Chair. I just took a quick measurement, and if we added that parcel to the other existing city parcels, it would be a total of about half an acre.
No, thank you. No, that's great. That's a lot of vegetables planted in an area, so that's great. So you have, I guess, go to council now?
Yep, I would just want to call the question on the resolution.
Okay, questions called. You want to make the motion?
Well, I think we already agreed to move ahead.
Yeah, I'm just calling the question on the resolution that was moved by Councillor Bernard and seconded by myself. Take a vote on it. No.
Oh, sorry. All right,
All good.
second it. Okay,
In favor?
okay.
I'm in favor, yep.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Okay. Now 6B, 2024 Community Sustainable Microgrant Recipients. Katrina again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this one is just to update you on the microgrant applications that were successful this year. For anybody who's newer, this is a program we've been doing for many years. It's a program that offers small-scale grants up to $2,500 to community groups and individuals, basically doing any kind of initiative that works towards the goals and actions of the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. So this year was a very big year. We had 29 eligible applications, and I think maybe 35 when you had added in some that were ineligible, which was maybe even a record year for numbers of applications, which is great. Those applications were reviewed by a committee of city staff from many different departments, and we ended up selecting 8 microgrants worth a total of $16,438. So you can see them all listed there. It's pretty diverse and covers many of the different themes that we work under in sustainability. We have, a local film night. We have a bike valet project through Bike Friendly Communities that will be providing bike parking at events. A PEI Queer Book Club, a Latin festival, forest bathing to promote and encourage time in nature, and a couple of gardening initiatives. So a pretty good group there. The funds for this were approved in the Environment and Sustainability 24-25 operating budget, so just shy of the $15,000 that are allocated for that yearly, and then a little bit extra through the Go PEI Participation Fund through Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Katrina. A lot of interesting groups and interesting projects there approved. So, any questions from anybody? Councillor Duran? Councillor Bernard?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right.
Just want to take note there, Mr. Chair. Reach Gardening Initiative. And there's also Grow to Give Garden, which is Spring Park United Church. So just in the Reach Gardening Initiative, will that occur somewhere? Do you have a place? I couldn't find the breakdown of it.
So my understanding with that one is that they'll be getting plots at the Legacy Gardens Community Garden, and they'll be doing their programming there with some of the support through the therapeutic horticulture program that they have there. And then some of the funds as well are going towards, the materials that they need for the planting, like the plants, the seeds, amendments, that sort of thing. And then also working with a local chef to help them do programming to transform that food into meals.
So is that something working with the Food Council? Is that what the Reach Initiative will be doing?
No, they haven't been in touch with the Food Council at this point. No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much, Katrina. 6C, FCM grant application for bike share program. Anna.
Thank you very much. So the purpose of this report is to seek your recommendation to council for that council should support the grant application that we have currently in draft and we're close to finalising with the Federal Green Municipal Fund, and endorse the general vision of a 2-year bike share pilot project, which would start in 2025 should the federal and provincial grants that we've applied for come through. So the history of this within the city, it sort of starts back in 2022, and it generally went through the Public Works Committee. But now that I'm on board, leadership has transferred over to our department and this committee. Basically, there was this funding application to the PEI Active Transportation Fund, which we've heard is likely to go through, but it hasn't been confirmed yet, and that would have funded a little over half of the initial costs for a pilot project. But that is able to be stacked with federal funding, which would take us up to, I think, 88% of the funding, so there's a much lower city contribution. And as part of putting in that federal funding application, we're also changing the initial vision. The initial vision was about $550,000 for an e-bike share fleet, so it was going to be 68 electric bikes, which would be distributed around 12 docking stations, mostly in Charlottetown and 2 in Stratford. The challenge is that 68 bikes and 12 docking stations would not allow for a very significant geographic reach, so it would sort of just be limited to the downtown. Of course, we know that purchasing an e-bike is a sort of $2,000 commitment, but purchasing a regular bike is more like a $400 commitment. And if you look at e-bike or bike share programs around North America, you generally find that they have a combination fleet of mechanical bikes and around 1/4 or less e-bikes. And that means that for most journeys that are under 5 kilometers, somebody can choose a regular pedal bike. But if you're going in that sort of 5 to 7 or 8 or 9 kilometer range on a bike share bike, you can choose the electric bike, which might be more expensive for a half hour. So for about the same capital cost, the adjusted proposal is now looking at 185 bikes in bike share fleet and 32 docking stations for a 2-year pilot project. So we aren't asking for council to commit funding at this stage. All of that would still have to go through an RFP process, which would include details of how helmets would work, exactly where the locations would be, what the fee structure would be. But today we're just asking for, I suppose, council's support for a grant application and endorsing the vision of a bike share project. And yeah, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Anna. No, good. Any questions from Councillor Duran?
Yeah.
Councillor Bernard?
Yeah, just comment. It sounds pretty promising to me. It sounds like something that we should definitely move forward on. I like what I hear. I think it would be something that'd be well used, especially for tourism too.
No, I agree. No, going green, electrical buses, electrical bikes. No, it's all good. Councillor Duran?
Yeah, I just had a concern. Would this be going against private business? Like, are we going to give the bikes away? Are they free to use? What is the background on that?
Yeah, so for the pilot project, the municipality would own the bikes and the infrastructure. It'd be similar to the contract that we have with Trias for operating the bus system. So we would own the capital, but we would have a contract established with an operator, which is a 2-year contract. We would have the contract be a little different than our transit system, where we would retain the revenue and then we would pay the operator a fixed rate for operating a fleet of 185 bikes. And so they would be responsible for staffing, for repairs, for moving bikes around, for maintaining the software required. But generally, a bike share, if you go to one of the larger cities, Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, they have them. I think Halifax is also they're at a similar stage to us, looking at starting one. But generally, you can turn up to a station, you can download the app on your mobile phone, and you can scan the QR code on a bike and unlock a bike, and it'll be about $3 to borrow that bike for a half an hour. Or you might have a weekly or a monthly subscription, which allows you to take out the bike as many times as you want for a half hour at a time. It's important to note that it doesn't conflict with bike tour or rental companies that have the ability to rent a bike for a 2-hour or a half day or a day or a week, because these bikes through the bike share are only available for a half-hour trip after which point you have to dock it again. Otherwise, you start to be charged much higher rates. And that just means that there's really consistent turnover of bikes. And there's probably about 10 different companies that are operating significant systems in North America. So I think that if we do receive these federal and provincial grants and we start to put out an RFP, we'll probably receive a number of competitive, we'll have good choices to choose from in an RFP process. After the pilot is concluded, we could continue in the same model, or we could look at the results of the pilot and say, actually, it's more appropriate to operate this wholly within the city, own and operate it within municipal staff. Or we could say, we don't want to own the bikes, and we could sell the bikes to a private operator who then pays a license fee to the municipality to operate within the city. And there's a really good conversation that we could have about the integration of e-scooters into a license model as well. All three of those governance models do exist in North America at the moment, but which one is most appropriate is sort of what we would try to determine over a 2-year project. And the pilot project aims for, I suppose, the middle of that 3-option spectrum.
Any follow-up, Councillor Duran?
No, the initial, I guess, we're here to move it on to council, to start the process, to look at it, so the numbers would come back before we get involved. Am I correct on that?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And
I do have a question. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Bernard.
I'm just wondering, Anna, so the idea of this, and I like the idea, but it's for people who want to tour Charlottetown and basically get around and see the sights and so on, correct?
It can also be used for commuting. So it's fairly common in sort of Montreal and Toronto that people will walk to the bike station that is closest to their house, and then they'll drive it. They'll cycle it downtown and park it at one of the downtown stops, and then in the afternoon they'll go to their downtown stop and they'll cycle it back to their residential neighborhood. So it can be used both for commuting and for visitors to the city, certainly. The forecasts estimate that this could take up somewhere between 3 and 9% of all trips in the city, which is significant considering that our current active transportation mode share is only about 8%. So it could, it could up to double that.
Yeah, I guess my question is around the 30 minutes. Does that seem short? Because I'm thinking by the time you get in, get your bike and get going, I mean, it doesn't take long for 30 minutes to expire.
Yeah, 30 minutes.
So what happens if you don't reach your docking station within 30 minutes?
30 minutes on a bike would be about 7 or 8 kilometers, and Charlottetown, the vast majority of trips that are made within Charlottetown are less than 7 or 8 kilometers. You'd have to be going to like Winslow to be longer than that. When I've personally used a bike share in Toronto, I accidentally rented an Airbnb at the wrong end of town, and I had to cycle for 45 minutes to get to my destination. And all I did is I cycled halfway, docked it, and then took it out immediately again to continue further. But they are designed for single trips rather than renting for a whole day. So currently all the bike stores in Charlottetown, you can rent a half day or a full day on a bike. But the vast majority of trips that people take by bike would be between 2 and 7 kilometers. And so they are that sort of 10 to 25 minute bike trip. It's just, it's a trip that's too far to walk, but where there's a benefit in switching from your car because you don't have to pay for parking at the end and you don't have to take the time driving around to find a parking spot.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Is that 30 minutes flexible? Does the company have the ability to fluctuate and make it 45 minutes? 'Cause
Yeah,
I
we
do come in
could
for Winslow
change
and
it to
takes me
40.
a little over 30 minutes.
Yeah, we could change it to 45 minutes, certainly. I think the 30 minutes would be typical of what we see in other municipalities that have used these for a number of years.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Your Worship?
I have an e-bike and I try to use it as much as possible. And the speed, you can get up to about 25, 28 kilometers quite easy. But when I was in Toronto visiting my son last year, Yonge Street e-bike, and I know they're using the e-bike, e-bike share program, no helmets, dipping in and out of traffic. And Anna, when you talk about Montreal or Toronto, the critical mass there is much larger than what you're talking about Charlottetown. So I don't know how that 30-minute will work for us, but do you have data that shows, what is the ROI, return on investment for the city of Toronto or Montreal with the e-bike sharing program?
Yeah, this is a great question. There are, and so this goes to the governance model question as well. Montreal subsidizes their bike share program. So I think Montreal and Toronto both have an arrangement with their provider where if the revenue that is charged is less than the total cost of operating the system, then they'll actually top up, the municipal budget will top up the cost. It's a recognition that providing this service does decrease from car traffic and congestion, which the municipality would be paying for in other ways in terms of parking pressure and so on. So it is a public service. There are other places where the municipalities are actually making money from their bike share programs when the prices are completely set by the bike share operating company. And so the rates per trip might be higher for the individual using them, which can have equity implications for who uses the bikes. But then the municipality might charge those companies $5 to $15 per bike per year for giving those companies a license to operate a bike share bike in the city. There are some cities that have one bike share provider. There are some cities that have 3 bike share providers that are in competition with each other, and these are all options that we could move towards. It's hard to know what the uptake is going to be in Charlottetown. We are starting from a very low base. I think one of the reasons that you see that critical mass when you go to Montreal and Toronto is because of the bike share programs, and they were very significantly invested in during COVID when people were stepping away from public transport, and they were looking for ways to get active in their communities. So both of those cities really invested. Neither of those cities have mandatory helmet laws, which we do have here in PEI. And on helmets, the Vancouver bike share program, they actually provide a helmet with every bike that is locked to the bike, so that when you take it out, you put on a helmet, and when you lock the bike back to its docking station, the helmet has to be attached to the bike. And then from the docking stations, they have like hair nets that people can put over under the helmet if they want to. So there are ways that all of these can be managed, but I can't say now whether it would be subsidized by the municipality or run at a profit or run at a loss or be revenue neutral. That would depend on the sort of dollar per rental rate that we choose and the level of uptake. You could use your own helmet, yes. Yeah. Yep. You could use your own helmet. You just need to make sure that the rented helmet remains attached to the back of the bike. And yeah.
Second question, Mr. Chair. So that's why the data is very important. I kind of thought that as soon as you get into a public service, that there will be subsidization coming from some level of government. In this case, it would be the municipal government that eventually could be subsidizing the e-bike share program. But could you try to get some data from other communities that would be similar in size, like Brandon, Manitoba? I don't know if they offer something out there, or somewhere in Ontario with similar size populations.
Yeah.
Where they could give us some data.
Certainly.
And that way we can use it as part of the discussion going forward. When you take on 185 e-bikes, and if you average that at $2,000 per bike, I paid $2,200 for mine. You're getting that into a capital investment that we're going to have to find somewhere to amortize it and debt service it. So it's just, information is very important.
Yep.
And like the Kick e-scooter, we get into it and realize, we better have a framework here. So could we also be looking at a framework on maybe a policy or a bylaw that would govern which I think would be similar in other jurisdictions.
Yes.
So I just want to put that out there.
I would love to pull together that data for you all. I think that I hope that it would be possible to, for council to support the grant application at this stage. And then by the time that we get to the point of making a specific budget request for council, I'd be really glad to provide some examples of bike shares in comparatively sized municipalities.
Thank you. Your worship, you raised a question there that an Economic Development Tourism Committee we had 2 months ago, it was brought up to start a bylaw for the helmets and the e-scooters and stuff. Do you know, or the CAO, did anybody know if that has started yet, that bylaw process?
I think that's through the summary proceedings, update on the summary proceedings bylaw, where we incorporate the helmet use. Right now, it's under provincial legislation under the Traffic Act, but it should be in our summary proceedings bylaw so that we could apply that fine contravention of not using your helmet.
Trevor?
Councilor Bernard?
Thank you. But this conversation we're having on the application for the bike share program, this is from the Federated Canadian Municipalities grant application, correct? We're not being asked to put any money into it yet. This is exploratory, and we're looking to apply for that grant for the application. Is that correct, Anna?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So I can tell you, I kind of had my eyes open. I mean, out here in Squamish, there's trails everywhere. And for a population of 20,000, I'm surprised at the amount of people out here that are on bikes because they can get everywhere. And the bikes are, like I say, they connect to all the stores and the communities, and they go through the woods. They're all paved. They got lines on them. It's just unreal. And I would be interested in at least doing this as a trial. So, it's the FCM right now. It's a grant application that we would apply for, and let's see how that application goes. And then we can take it from there to council. Thank you.
Thank you. So we need a motion to support the grant application.
Moved.
Moved by your worship, seconded.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, resolution's on the floor. Judge, just want to ask a follow-up question. So it's not 100% FCM, and is it ISIP? What's the other?
The Active Transportation
Yeah.
Fund. So there
it's
was
not 100%.
already.
I think it's 87%.
Yes, so the Active Transportation Fund provincially, we already applied for that.
Right.
And we're expecting that to come through for 402,000.
Right.
And the Green Municipal Fund application is for a further 500,000, which would get us up to a level, meaning that for a 2-year pilot project, the city contributes $137,000 plus staff time.
Thank you.
Thank you, worship. Motion's on the floor. All in favor?
Question.
Questions called. Councilor Duran, Councilor Bernard.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to do it like resolutions. We already moved and seconded it. Move ahead. I mean, we're just moving it ahead to council. Yeah, go ahead.
Good point. Thank you. All right. New business. Any new business?
Mr. Chair, I just sent an email to all of you just before the meeting. I just want to put this under a notice of motion. It's from the Parnell Square Co-op. It was sent to Anna Keenan about transit. I'd like to follow up with that issue in the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other new business? Motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second it. Thank you.
you very much.
Trevor.